This film will focus on the life of a man named Mike, who frequently receives bullying from his peers who often harass him daily. One day, while being targeted by his friends, Mike runs into someone's yard and accidentally sees a mysterious man entering the house. Shortly after, the house explodes. Curious, Mike decides to follow the man while recording all his actions. From his surveillance, Mike learns that the man is a hitman who always manipulates his actions to look like accidents, so the police can't catch him. Growing more curious, Mike bravely goes to the man's house with the intention of asking him to teach him how to kill, so Mike can take revenge on the boys who often bully him. The man's name is Ray. When he hears this request, Ray initially refuses losers. But after some questioning, Ray starts to relent and says that to take down a gang, Mike must eliminate their leader first. Without much delay, following Ray's instructions, Mike sneaks into the gang leader's room. After waiting for the right moment, Mike then pushes him off a building, making the incident look like an accident. After seeing Mike's action, Ray realizes that this kid has great potential. Consequently, Ray begins to teach him everything he knows, from martial arts and shooting to knowledge related to killing. 15 years later, Mike has now become a professional assassin with cleaner tricks than Ray. He manages to make his victims appear to have committed suicide and always completes his jobs perfectly. After each kill, Mike offers his mental stress by beating up some people in a bar who he considers unpleasant. After leaving the bar, Mike goes to his headquarters where hitmen gather. This headquarters is established by a community or organization of hitmen. In that place, there are several hitmen like Cliff, an emotional hitman who often kills his targets brutally. Cliff himself, he offers using an axe over a gun because it's cheaper and doesn't require buying bullets. The second is Poison Pete. He is a hitman who loves using hazardous chemicals in his jobs. Pete considers this method cleaner and more effective than using violence and physical contact. Next are the brothers Mac and Mick, former military personnel who use killing methods like gangsters. Next, there is Jane, a beautiful scavenger with her trademark samurai. Jane often encounters her lustful targets, which makes her even more enthusiastic about her job. Then there's Fred, a hitman who randomly selects his assassination targets because he enjoys trying out new killing methods. Lastly, there's their boss, Big Ray, who is responsible for protecting and concealing their identities by creating strict rules for each hitman member. Soon, their middleman with clients appears, a middle-aged man named Milton. Milton's job is to provide them with assignments and manage the payment from clients. In short, Mike gets another job. Here, we witness how clever and meticulous Mike is as he shoots a car tire, trapping the target until they die, yet making it look like an ordinary accident. That night, Mike gets a new assignment. For some reason, Mike never knows who the client is or why the target has to die. What is certain is that Mike and his colleagues only do this job professionally and without personal vendettas. One day, Mike is ambushed by a motorcyclist who suddenly shoots him brutally. However, the motorcyclist made a big mistake because the person he attacked was Mike. After defeating the man, Mike contacts Milton to ask him to find out the identity of that person. Not stopping there, Mike is also shocked by the news of the death of his beloved ex-girlfriend. According to circulating rumors, she was killed by two addicts who tried to rob her house. At the funeral, Mike meets his friend Charlie, who tells him that Mike's ex-girlfriend was actually pregnant with his child. Hearing this, Mike feels even more sadness. Although it was determined that the murder was done by addicts, Mike continues to investigate the crime scene to analyze the actual chronology. And from his hypothesis, Mike finds out that the perpetrators of this act were not ordinary addicts, but someone very skilled, none other than Mike and Mick. Without wasting time, Mike immediately meets both of them and gives them a lesson for ruthlessly killing the woman he loved without permission. Finally, Mac and Mick confess that they indeed killed his ex-girlfriend, according to the client's orders. Feeling unacceptable, Mike goes to Ray to report this. But Ray can't do much either because once again, they are only carrying out the tasks as requested by the client without any personal involvement or vendetta. Not satisfied with that, Mike returns to meet Charlie to gather information about anyone who might dislike or have been hurt by his ex-girlfriend. Suddenly, Cliff appears there and immediately attacks Mike wildly. Mike gets involved in a fight with him, which eventually leads to Cliff being killed by his own weapon. After that, Mike asks who sent him and why he did that to his friend. But it turns out that Cliff really didn't know who the client was and only said that this task was according to Milton's orders. After that, Mike goes to Milton's place and immediately beats up his guard. After intense interrogation, Milton still refuses to reveal the client's identity because he fears Big Ray's rules more than Mike's threats. However, after receiving some minor threats, Milton reveals that the client is named Leonard Kent. Meanwhile, because he has violated the community's rules, Ray orders all community members to kill Mike. Although he is reluctant to do it, rules must be followed as an obligation for the community's continuity. Back to Mike, who is with Charlie, he finally finds a clue about someone who might be related to his ex-girlfriend's death. It's worth noting that his ex-girlfriend was a social activist who once investigated a foreign company involved in several illegal activities. It seems that her death is related to the company she was investigating. With some notes from the email account provided by Charlie and information from Milton, Mike immediately meets the company's accountant to force him to reveal his involvement in his ex-girlfriend's death. Initially, the accountant claims he knows nothing about Mike's ex-girlfriend's death. However, after Mike puts some pressure on him, the accountant provides a conversation record belonging to his boss that might be a clue for Mike to find the truth. But in the middle of the discussion, suddenly, Mike and Mick appear and shoot at Mike, brutally following Ray's orders. However, Mike manages to avoid the bullets and fiercely duels with Mick. Despite being at a disadvantage initially, Mike ultimately manages to kill both of them. However, upon leaving, Mike is ambushed by Poison Pete, who tries to drug him with poison. Unfortunately for Poison Pete, he meets the same fate as Mac and Mick. It seems the fight isn't over yet. As Mike is about to leave, Fred appears with a bag full of killing tools. Luckily, Mike quickly overpowers him and takes a bandage from his bag. Following the address given by the accountant, Mike then goes to the boss's house. But there, Jane the samurai is already waiting, and they end up in a battle. It didn't take long for Mike to defeat Jane as well. As a grand finale, Mike heads to the man's room and slashes the boss's neck with a katana. After avenging his girlfriend's death, Mike goes to the headquarters to meet Ray and hands over a recording of the conversation between Milton and the client, who turns out to also be the community's money laundering partner. As a result for breaking the community's rules, Ray beats Milton until he is staggering. Once he regains consciousness, Milton tries to treat his wounds with a bandage given by Mike. However, as Mike suspected, Fred. His bandage contains poison that is lethal if it enters the bloodstream. Even though Mike has taken out the community members, Ray can't bring himself to kill Mike because deep down, Ray still cares for Mike as if he were his own son, ignoring the rules he made. Ray lets Mike go and tells him never to show himself again. After all that happened, Mike can now live freely like a normal person. From the prologue, it seems Mike is considering starting his own business as an assassin in another city, and the film My Friends. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing, you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.